Steve Krawczyk. I've been teaching for about 9 years, biology, AP biology at the high school level. And I got into Edulastic about 4 years ago. I'm going to give credit to my wife. She's a math teacher, and she kind of put the bug in my ear, and it came at a perfect time. I was kind of getting dragged down to the multiple guess, the stigma of the sciences. And so, the tech enhanced was the buzzword, and it, again, gives it a lot of creativity, a lot of options, and that's where it started. And so I started integrating Edulastic into, the second half of the year, and then I just kind of progressively grew that practice. And lo and behold, when COVID hit, I had a nice toolkit of a little bit of everything and a little bit of comfort with this this awesome platform. Go ahead, hit the next slide, please. And so you're going to see this kind of recurring theme, exit tickets, some homework assessments, quizzes and tests are obviously going to be the common things that people use this for. And that's, again, it's a really cool tool. It has a lot of neat features. And that's kind of what I want to focus on, is the features, and talk about just like, again, that creative part of, how can I use this in my classroom? How can I get away from just, again, that multiple guess that, the kids are like, okay, I got 4 answers. I just have to pick one of those and I have 25% chance of getting them. And so if we give them a little bit more diverse types of questions, well, now they really need to know what they're doing. And that gives me input on how well I'm doing in the classroom. So some of those key features I'll touch base. Again, question variety, that tech enhanced. Again, I think it started with 30. I think they said there were about 50 now. So if you could dream it, there's probably a way you could make it work on this platform. And so it's really cool if you're into making diverse questions. Live assessment features was touched on a little bit. I'll talk about those. Again, just immediate feedback and just some cool things in there that, especially when you get into the premium version, makes the job of the teacher just a little bit easier for them, which, technology is great when it works, but if it can make your job easier, awesome if you can get it to work and make that job easier. A cool feature, converting PDFs. Okay, so we've gotten into a lot of digital homework, and Edulastic has a cool tool that allows you to, if you have something, you don't just have to recreate the wheel. And so you can save some of those old assignments and use them in this digital age. And then I'm going to hit again a little bit more data analysis. Again, really cool feature as you get into that premium subscription. Go ahead and hit the next slide, please. So I love drag and drops. Okay. Again, it's manipulative. It's, kids don't just, pick a button and that's their choice. They have to figure out where things need to go. So the picture on the left is looking at protein synthesis, and it's a little busy in there, but there's some boxes that they got to drop certain things into. There's some distractors in there. And again, a kid has to know what they're working with. On the right side, you have, again, drag and drops, but this time you have to, distinguish what are qualities between DNA and RNA. Again, the kid has to know what they're going to drop into the right box. It's not just an easy A, B, C, D answer. And so again, the kids have to have a little bit know-how of what they're doing. Go ahead on the next one. More variety in the tech enhanced. So we saw some drop downs. I like this idea of, if you have a sequence or if you have a scenario or something that they were reading or, something we did in class, and, you want to give them those little hints, and it's kind of like a multiple choice, but you're trying to, fill in that whole sequence of events. So there's a drop down menus that, okay, maybe there's a vocab word they need to fill in that sits into that spot, or maybe it's a scenario to make that a complete thought. So again, some options when you're trying to incorporate, your assessments or your bell ringers or your, just getting some feedback on what the kids are retaining. A sequence, and I think this has been common for some other platforms. You can label 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on paper, but it's really cool. You drag one of those slides and it moves the whole group up and down. And so when you're done with that sequence, you can actually read it in order. And I think that's really cool because then it gives a chance for those kids that want to double check themselves. They don't have to skip around. They can see that, all right, the first thing that I want to be on top is the first step. Second thing is the second step. Third is the third, and so on. And so those kids that want to double check themselves, they're being able to see that, okay, this looks like the right sequence. I'm going to stick with it. I'll go to the next question. Go ahead to the next slide. Fill in the blanks with a sequence of questions. So this one, whenever I think of the tech enhanced, the creativity, this one, it always comes to my mind. I thought it was a really cool question. So to give you a little bit of a background, so we're talking about transcription translation, using an amino acid chart, and mutations. And so the style of question is, fill in the blanks. And so the neat thing is, as you can see, there's an RNA sequence that I give them. The kids are going to use the charts to fill in the amino acid sequence. Well, they're putting in 3 letters to each one of those boxes. So Edulastic is going to grade each one of those as its individual. It's not grading the whole sequence and you miss one letter and it dings them for the whole thing. It's going to give them, so if they happen to make one little mistake, it's going to take a fraction of a point off. So I like that. Again, if you can be creative, you can dream it up. You can come up with some really neat and creative questions. On top of that is now I have multiple parts. And so within this same question, well, I said, all right, what's the original codon that has a mutation? What changed from that original sequence? And then I kind of give them a little bit more, what type of mutation is this? And I give them a little bit of a couple choice words to use. It also helps with spelling. They love spell check. And if it's not there, I'm going to try to help them out a little bit. But it's really neat because, I have 4 different questions in this scenario, and I don't have to switch pages, or I don't have to, make a question. And then, if I want to use that same material, I don't have to kind of give them the old answer if all these questions are randomized. So it's really neat to have multi-part questions that the kids can work through. And it's like, okay, if I got this right, well, now I can use this in the next question. So yeah, this is, again, kind of a neat thing that I like to do. And it's, again, building into that creativity. If you can dream it up, if you can put it on paper, you could probably create it in this system. Go ahead on the next one. Drag and drops again. I really enjoy these. But this is a really neat example on the left side, doing Punnett squares. And a little bit of error on my side was in this scenario. So Punnett squares, you're putting in the parents on the outsides, you're putting the kids on the inside. My question, and I don't remember when I made this, if this was intentional or not, but a cool feature is you can have alternative answers. So on my square, you can see one side's father, one side's mother. Well, a kid looking at the questions like, well, I might just flip-flop them. And if it's a normal computer system, it's going to grade that wrong. But with Edulastic, when you go in to put in those answers, there's alternative answers. And so I can make 2 versions of this, one with the mother on one side, dad on the other side, and I could flip them. And so whichever way the student puts in that answer, the system is going to look at those and it's going to give them credit for both of those answers. And I think that's great that, or a kid breaks your question and then you realize, uh-oh, what if some other kids break my question? And so now I can go back in there and I can put alternatives in there. Again, the system is going to give them credit for those new questions and saves me a little bit of grading if they break it early. Number 14 here is a different type of question I've used a few times, but it's just something neat. I think it's called hotspot. And so again, kind of clicking on different parts if you want to identify things. So what you do, and my handiwork, I'd say this is probably not my best, kind of squaring, but you basically make the square, you make the button that you want the kids to be able to click on and identify. And so that gives them something to click onto, and then it changes color, for whatever you're trying to do. So again, really cool visual and different style of question. Go ahead on the next one. And don't throw away all of your PDFs and your paper documents. You can still use them with Edulastic. So the feature is when you make a new assessment, it's going to say, do you want to start from scratch or do you want to start from a PDF? And so if you have some of these, you can upload a PDF and create a digital assignment. Really cool feature. One quirk is you got to make sure all your questions are in numerical order. It doesn't do different numbering styles, or at least I haven't figured that out. But you can do multiple choice, you can do true, false, fill in the blank, drop downs, math. You can kind of see on this, this is what the student would see, is they would see all of their pages, okay, and they could work through it and just like flipping through. And this is looking at cell cycles. And so we have a little bit of like fill in the blank with some letters. And if you progress on the right side, it looks kind of like a Scantron. And so they're answering it and they're getting those right. This is the teacher side of it more specifically because you can see the answers, but it's a similar format. But you can have the fill in the blanks in there and all these little buttons on the bottom. Again, you can have the true, false, you can have math stuff, you can have short answer. And so even if you got one of your PDFs, you can still use those and turn it into a digital copy. It's one of those things that, again, as you use it, it's one of those things I want to use it a little bit more and almost convert a lot of those, especially now. You got kids out on quarantine, you got kids that are sick for extended periods of time. I feel like I'm killing trees, printing out a lot of stuff. So this is a nice way that, all right, little Jimmy's stuck home. He can't get anything up, or he can't get anybody to drop stuff off. Make this, yes, there's a little bit of setup because you are putting in the answers, but once it's in there, you have it. Go ahead on that next one. Live assessments. Again, we kind of heard a little bit about this, and it's a really good feature. Immediate feedback from the teacher or to the teacher's desk. You see where the kids are, what they're working on, how far they're progressing, which ones are taking longer than others. You see the overall class, average scores. You see which questions kids are spending more time on. And again, while that assessment is going, you're already getting data to look at their progress. A couple of the premium things, there's a full screen warning pause. And I think we hinted at that a little bit, or someone might be saying that a little bit later. But again, technology making my job a little bit easier. I don't have to worry about kids flipping screens. There's a setting where it says, all right, for 10 seconds, if they jump away from the screen for 10 seconds, they get locked out. And yeah, everybody loved question 7. It was a good one. So there's that feature. I enjoy that. Or if a kid's making up a test, I know I can kind of leave them alone and their screen is locked out. And if they jump away from it, it tells me, it locks them out. And then they got to come to me and be like, I can't do my test anymore. And so now I know, I'm like, well, what are you doing? You cheating, or is your computer possessed? Randomized questions and answers. Again, premium feature that's just, again, anti-cheating, making the teacher's job a little bit easier and something less they have to police. Go ahead and hit the next one. And then data analysis. Our corporation is kind of heading in this way for cataloging and just wanting a kind of universal platform. And so we've picked up Edulastic, and so I've been learning a little bit more about this. And again, premium, if you get some of this extra stuff, it's gonna make your job a little bit easier. And so far, I'm seeing it. So this one just kind of gives me an overview of all my classes, gives you some kind of ranges of how the kids are doing, how many kids have taken it, you know, student averages. Go ahead and hit the next screen. Evaluating questions across classes. So now, you know, I have 100 kids that have done this assessment, and I can see again how much time they're spending on them, how proficient they are, you know, which questions were okay, which ones maybe I could do a little bit better on. You know, maybe there's something about the question that didn't jive with everybody. And I can, and, you know, I look at those top kids and or some of those other kids and see like, okay, I see where they messed up, or I see where they misunderstood something. And so we can talk about that. And so it's really neat to see across all your questions, you know, across all of your classes, because now you get a bigger sample, what the kids are doing and how well you're doing. Go ahead and proceed. And going back, another tab on standards. It's okay.
Wait, here or the one before?
Yep, this is good. You're good.
Okay, sorry.
And another thing is standards. Again, trying to keep track of your standards, seeing how you're doing from one thing to the next. Again, our corporation is wanting to keep a little bit more track on that. And so just trying to stay up on those. And so this is kind of my goal is attaching those standards. You know, when you get started, you're just making a test. You're trying to get the kids, you know, seeing what they do. And so, you know, again, trying to refine your teaching, refine your strategies. And so, you know, looking at those standards, you know, biology in Indiana has the standardized tests. So we want to see where we're at in those avenues. So again, tons of data analysis. And I think a lot of it is in the premium. But, you know, once you get a taste of it, you really see those benefits in there. Thank you guys. If you have any questions, let me know. Thank you.